Thank you. The first item on the agenda, which my sole purpose for being here to introduce, is the election of a chair. So can we have nominations for chair, please?
I'd like to propose Councillor Graham Walker, please, Laurie.
Is that seconded?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Any further nominations? Is all agreed?
Yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Councillor Walker, you will have, I think, Leslie will have sent you a declaration of office. Have you got it?
Yes.
Could you please read that out, sir? You don't have
Oh,
to.
yes. No, I haven't got the declaration of office. All I've got is the briefing report and the agenda.
Yes, but you accept the office and we can get the declaration signed.
Yes, I accept the position as chair.
Okay, sir. Well, Mr. Chairman, you now take over the meeting, and that leads you to your second item, which is the election of a deputy chair.
Just before we move on, just a point of order. Would the council please resolve to accept this signed declaration of acceptance of office form at a later date, please?
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you all for that. So we've got to move on now to the agenda. Is it, Laurie? Oh no.
Agenda item 2, election of deputy chair.
Vice chair, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So have we any nominations for the vice chair?
I'd like to, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose Councillor Emma Roberts.
Is that seconded? Everyone agree?
I could second that.
Thank you. Any further nominations? Is that all agreed then?
Agreed.
Thank you. Welcome to the Deputy Chair, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So that's accepted, yes?
I'll accept, yeah.
Thank you.
Well done, Emma.
So, right, we'll move on. Any apologies?
No apologies. All present.
Thank you. So we move on to number 4, which is confirmation of appointments of an interim parish clerk and responsible financial officer. So we'll move on to there. The council is required by law to appoint a proper officer responsible for signing and serving official documents and receiving such documents on behalf of the council, and responsible financial officer, an RFC. Under its outcome with Northampton CALC for supporting the creation of new parishes, the borough agreed to Northampton CALC appointing the most appropriate person to fill both roles. So we now have to move to appoint that officer, yeah?
I think you've got Councillor Emma Roberts wishing to speak.
Oh, sorry, Emma.
That's okay. Sorry, I did raise the electronic hand to try and catch that before the meeting. I recall from previous conversations that we had an opportunity there to decide on the naming of the chair. I would like to propose that we adopt chair and deputy chair rather than chairman, if possible, please.
Agreed. I agree with that.
Everyone else agree?
Yeah.
I think it's agreed, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we go back to the officer for the clerk. Laurie, so where do we move on from there now?
I think I think Leslie will report on this item. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. So we propose that Kate Houlihan would be an excellent candidate for the role of interim parish clerk and RFO. Kate has years of experience as a town clerk, so will be a very safe pair of hands to begin your journey as a new community council.
Okay, thank you for that. So we need to vote on that. So could we have a show of hands on that?
Could I, Chair, could I ask,
Yes.
Does one of the councillors actually have to propose that? Katie, I guess, you know, I think it should be officially proposed and seconded by one of us and then voted on, or maybe not necessary.
Okay.
It wouldn't be necessary for this particular item, thank you.
Okay, we'll just vote then.
I think we're all agreed. Everyone is agreed.
Yeah, everybody agreed on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So, welcome, Kate. We're going to move on. Well, we are moving on quickly, aren't we? Any declarations of interest? None? So that's it on my page, Laurie. I do have this agenda now. I've got another agenda that's come on to me to adopt, subject to review at the annual council meeting, the draft standing orders.
That is correct. That's correct, Mr. Chairman. It's draft standing orders, finance regs, and code of conduct.
Yes.
Again, I think Leslie can speak to this item.
Okay, would you take on then, Leslie, please?
Yes, thank you. So the draft standing orders are actually based on the model standing orders from the National Association of Local Councils. They are a model document which has all the legislative requirements that you as a council will need, and also sets out various things that you could consider during council meetings. They are draft standing orders, however, you do need some framework to operate as a council. So we're suggesting that you could adopt these, and they would be reviewed by the councillors after the May election at the annual council meeting. The same goes for draft financial regulations. You do need to adopt those as a council also. And the code of conduct we're suggesting would be the code of conduct that you as borough councillors already abide by.
Okay, Leslie, thank you for that. Is any questions? Anybody got any questions on that? No? Okay, so we vote on that item.
Has anyone any comment, Mr. Chair?
Yeah. I
Any
did
comment?
ask, has anybody got any?
Comment? Right.
No, nobody's.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So
Thank
it's
you.
a question of, is it all agreed? Yeah. That's carried, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Right, we move on to consider the draft contingency budget recommended by the cross-party working group. Again, I don't know if any of you have got a copy of the budget, the draft budget. Any comments on that?
I was sorry, Mr. Chair, to interrupt you. I think probably Leslie again can talk to this item. This is, if I could just say, this is a draft contingency or setup budget for the parish council, and the town council and indeed Kingsall have had the same, but of course different budgets, the same level of contingency. This is of course to aid the parish council in its first year of office, but there is nothing to stop, of course, this parish council changing that, increasing or decreasing it, or indeed considering, probably at some future date, further items of expenditure. But if I could hand over to Leslie, she can probably give further clarification. And I'm sure
thank you.
you have questions.
Leslie.
Thank you. Thanks. So the budget is set at a fairly high level. We have worked with borough council officers to try and get the most realistic budget that we can find for you. So we have gone through and we've looked at things like election costs, running costs of the council, contingencies, and also transfer to reserves, staffing costs, etc. When you take all that into account, the contingency budget is £148,000, which would equate to a Band D charge of £48.40, which is equivalent to 93 pence per week. If you were living in, say, a Band A property, that would equate to £32.27, and that's an annual cost, which is 62 pence per week. So a parish council does have a cost associated with it, but the budget is derived in such a way that it will allow the new councillors to decide on certain projects they may wish to carry forward in year one without suggesting what those projects may be. So we're not fettering the council and trying to say you need to do this or you need to do that. It will be up to those new councillors to decide how they need to work with the community and to do the best for their community.
Thank you, Leslie. Again, would anybody got any comments? No?
No.
Oh,
Councillor
Emma?
Roberts.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm using the electronic hand, and I'm not sure you're seeing that, so I'm popping my hand up as well. Okay, I just wanted to point out that I have the same concerns that I had before, in that we still don't have detail surrounding how these figures were come about, and I'm not clear or comfortable with the calculations that are there. I'm not being disrespectful, but we've had conversations about these before, and still some of those figures are on here are not as we've had detailed to us before as being accurate. So I'm still a little bit concerned. I think if I'm correct, we can approve this with further work this evening, but insist on further work and have that further work take place for us to have further evidence prior to the end of January. If I'm correct in that, can I just have that 100% clarified on here, please?
Yeah, thank you, Emma. I can't see, there's no reason why we couldn't do that. Laurie, is there, or Leslie?
Well, I think if Leslie could explain first of all, and then I can come in afterwards. Thank you.
We can certainly give you more information around certain items. So, for instance, you've had the staffing costs already, so they are broken down for you. We can do that again for professional services and subscriptions, running costs. Election costs come from the Borough Council. Accommodation costs was a Borough Council figure also. Things like the contingency and the amount to develop future services or transfer to reserves. The contingency is just that, it is a contingency figure to allow the council to do something in year one. As I said before, what that something is not for me to say, but it's for the new councillors to decide. And the contingency, the amount to transfer to reserves, you do need to have reserves, especially in year one, because you have nothing on the 1st of April. You have no bank account, no cash, no nothing. So the amount in there works out at around 6 months of your running budget. And it's suggested you have anywhere between 3 to 12 months of a contingency into your reserves. So if anything goes wrong, you do have that safety cushion, because what you don't want to do is have to have a great project, start the project, and then find you've run out of money because you come up with some issue that was unforeseen and you have no reserves behind you to fall back on in year one. So that's why we've suggested the 50,000 for reserves.
Thank you, Leslie. Chair, if I could just come back on that slightly, Leslie, I do appreciate your explanations, and you've been very, very helpful with the information that you've supplied so far. But I think I have concern over the fixed figures that are on there. So the accommodation cost, for example, that's a figure that's been put forward, but I have no calculation around where that's come from or how that is detailed. I have no details of the professional services and subscriptions, and I know those figures are fixed, and I know that it's been said before that actually it's probably more than 4,000. So if it's more than 4,000, where do we take that money from? If we have to then put it somewhere else, does that come from the contingency? Does that come from the amount? So I would just like some further clarity and clearance on that before we consider this, because this is obviously going to be the extra amount that our residents are going to be paying. So I want to make sure that we're doing that right.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think Brian, Councillor Markham.
All right.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, my questions were pretty much, the questions were certainly the same as Emma's. The comment is on the need for contingency and the future plans fund, you know, having something there which the future councillors, when they're elected, and hopefully all of them residents of the area concerned with their priorities. There's no good setting up this council unless there is something then available that council can use to make improvements in the area. So I think there needs to be an amount of money in there for the first year to promote the council and get things moving. How much in the future is spent in the area, because at the moment that budget as it's presented, there's an awful lot of cost of setting the thing up and just being there, existing, but not having much of an impact because it doesn't have much to spend, but which Emma says it's all extra cost, but hopefully there will be some extra benefits that the community will see. But the question was the same, do we have another? I've been looking for the report that's going to council, the Borough Council next Monday. Now, I've had lots of issues to deal with. I think some of you may know this week, but when I last looked, the report that the Borough Council's having, which is setting out more detail of what is being transferred to the various parishes and the town council and what those things cost, it is fulfilled, but it's not available. It wasn't available the last time I looked, and we do need to maybe consider having another meeting after this one and before the end of the month. Sorry, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so I think, you know, what Emma's brought up is good, and we need to do that. We need to make sure that we are going to be there on the ball and not left 6 months down the road with no money or anything else. So, yeah, I'll take that. So is everybody happy with that to move on?
So can I just clarify, Mr. Chairman? We'll come back with, as per Councillor Roberts' suggestion, we'll come back with a further report and elucidate further the figures that have been elucidated tonight. If Councillor Roberts is happy with that.
Okay, thank you.
I think Councillor Roberts wishes to speak.
Yes, yeah, Emma.
I just thought it would might be easier if I was succinct with a sort of a proposal. There is that's exactly what happens. A further report is brought forward along with this budget, and after the Borough Council meeting on Monday, we set another date before the end of January. I think Leslie may have some suggestions on dates for us. We can set another date before the end of January, and then we can still meet the time that we have to propose the information to the borough.
Yes, I'd like to second that. I'll second that, yeah. Emma. Okay, thank you. Any more on that, Laurie? No?
Yes. One important point, the budget here is your responsibility, and while the recommendation from the cross-party working group is going to full council on Monday, which in fact is this budget and the budget of the town council and Kingsthorpe, they are only recommendations. At the end, it is for you and for Kingsthorpe and for the town council to make your decisions. Nobody else can make them.
Okay.
It is quite proper for you to ask for this further information, and obviously making sure we're well before the precept end date, you make a decision about your contingency budget.
Okay, thank you for that. Has got any comeback on that? Terry?
I just think we need to be really mindful about what extra charges we're putting on people locally. I know a lot of people that are struggling at the minute. A lot of people have lost their jobs. I mean, we've gone through such a weird year, which there doesn't seem to be an end in sight at all. Working in recruitment, I see just how many people are really, really struggling with their jobs and stuff like that at the moment. Now, I appreciate what's been said about having projects and doing things like that in the first year, but let's be really, really mindful about the money we're asking people to pay extra. The other thing is one of the stipulations about setting up the new structure from the government was that there was cost savings. I don't see that we're getting any kind of cost saving when we're adding parish councils into the mix as well for people locally. Any cost savings seem to be only going to the council, and it just doesn't seem to be that anybody within Northampton, full stop, is actually going to benefit from any cost savings at all. And I think we just need to be careful about how all of this comes across and what we're actually doing to people, especially in such a difficult time.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Eales. Any comments? Councillor Davenport.
Oh, hi. Yes, I would just like to reiterate what Councillor Eales has spoken about, although I know that we've talked about this quite a lot within the budget for the new unitary, that we are adding 4.99% on top of what it was. And bearing in mind, like Councillor Eales said, the residents thought that by going into a unitary, we were going to save money. But obviously now, I honestly don't know how people will accept the fact that it's 4.99% additional on ordinary council tax, plus there's going to be about £1 a week for the parish council. So I agree, we do need to bear that in mind. And it's very sad, I think, that they're actually having to have an increase.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Davenport. Anybody else would like to have a comment? No? So, okay, we'll move forward and we'll get that as Councillor Roberts has put forward. We need to look into this further. And I have to agree with both Councillor Eales and Councillor Davenport on what they're saying. We can't put more pressure on our local people. You know, they're in enough problems as it is with the COVID and whatever, losing their jobs. So we really do have to look at this again and make sure that we don't start taking food out of people's mouths at this present time. So yeah, that's that. Okay. So all happy to go forward, yes? Okay, so we move on to item 8. This is to note the purchase of a website.
I think Leslie can report on this, Mr. Chair. Okay,
Leslie, please.
Thank you. Yes, as a community council, you do need to have your own website. You have some papers that would need to be produced on the website, for instance, your standing orders, financial regulations, your model publication scheme for the Information Commissioner's Office, your agendas, your minutes. You know, there's lots of statutory things that you will need to publish and to have available for members of the public to be able to access free of charge. It will also be a great tool to encourage candidacy. You have 12 seats on the council, which will need to be filled. So you do need to start thinking about how we're going to encourage people to step forward and become councillors and to represent their community and help their community. So it's noting the purchase of a website. The costs will not be coming out of any council funds until the next financial year, so in April, May time. So at the minute, it's just noting that we can get the website up and running and we can start to publish everything we need to publish, and we can encourage the candidacy to the council as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, anyone? I have to personally say, this is not my strong point, is technology. So if anybody's got anything they'd like to say on this, or we just move forward. No, all agreed on this then. Okay, Councillor Markham.
Well, only to say it's logical. Once it was decided that this council should be set up, community council, and yeah, I wasn't one of those. I mean, I'm not part of that community, so it wasn't up to me. I wasn't particularly in favour of this course. But once it's there, then yes, it's got to make itself known to the community, and it certainly will need to promote the forthcoming elections. Otherwise, given the fact that at the moment it's not doing much more than adding extra cost onto the community, we need to engage with the community, and we need hopefully to get them, some of them, joining this council, and involving themselves in the future of the council. I'd be interested to know, Chair, when we finish, whether this was a public meeting. I wonder how many members of the public have watched this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we can find that information out, whether it will be at the end of this meeting, but I think there is a way of finding out how many has been or is watching on YouTube. So thank you for that.
Tell you now, Chair, there are 6 people watching on YouTube currently.
Oh, they are. We're not that popular then, are we?
Not yet.
We'll get there. Councillor Brian Oldham.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say a general comment. You get the website, but you see, you've got to get the message out. And any parish council, parish community is as good as the people that sit on it. It's a question of what they want to do, and they've got to do the best for the community. That's what they're there for. You can have, and Danny will tell you this, I've got first-hand knowledge of, you get the wrong people, and these sort of things can, shall I say, stagnate, and they're not there for the merits of the community, but just for the detriment of what they can do against the community in a way. But if you get the right people on it, you've got to get yourself out there. You've got to get the name out. You've got to really publish it. And it's like anything else. You only get out of this what you put in. And the thing is, with the right people, it can be overwhelming success. Going back to what Terry said some minutes ago, we are in difficult times. There's no two ways about it. But that's in the council's control to be mindful of that when they're making any decisions. It's you do control your own destiny, and that's, and publishing it on a website is great to get people involved, but it's also mindful of your responsibility to be, you've got to make a decision based on the present climate as it is, but with the right people it can be done, and it can also create a benefit for the community. It can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian. Any more comments? Anybody else would like to? Okay, so we'll move on then, because that's the.
That's agreed, Chair.
That's agreed. Yeah, is that all agreed? Yeah. Okay. Item 9, to agree the date of the next meeting of the council.
Yeah, I think it's.
So would that be Leslie?
Yeah, I have one date, which is Thursday, 28th of January, and it would be a 7 p.m. start again.
It's 27th. Oh,
28th.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, I've got a shadow town council meeting.
Did you say the 27th, Leslie?
The 28th.
28th.
Thursday, the 28th of January.
Okay, that's fine. I think we're all looking through our diaries.
Did you actually want another meeting prior to that? Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
I think that would be good if we could.
You wanted to consider the budget, and Councillor Roberts suggested.
Yes. Do you agree with that, Emma? Have a pre-meeting.
It's up to you. You could either have the 28th as a meeting settling it all,
Yeah.
size figures, or you could have a pre-meeting.
Okay. Can I just bring
Chair,
Mark? Yeah.
should I suggest that the meeting on the 28th is to do exactly what's to suggest, settle the precept and the budget for next year, as I understand it. Nothing else will be on the agenda. I don't really see need for a pre-meeting. If the chair and the deputy chair wish to discuss the proposal before the meeting, fair enough. But I don't really see the reason for a pre-meeting for that.
Seems
But
good.
that's up to you, Chair. You know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't take, my apologies, I couldn't take you off mute because my little girl's going to bed and she wanted to scream good night. So so I do apologise. That's the joys of everything happening in the one house. I don't see a need for a further earlier meeting because it will be a one item agenda meeting.
Okay.
Very good. Fine.
Yeah. Excellent. So we're all agreed on the 28th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there any other issues that items for information? Anyone?
Not from me.
Not from me, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So are we all happy with tonight's meeting, and hopefully we'll get together. So thank you all very, very much for coming along, and thank you for voting for me. And I'll do my best for the people in our parish. So once again, thank you all to the officers and everyone, Laurie, Danny, Kate and Leslie, and all the councillors. Thank you. I'll close this meeting.